We have mentioned to you this wonderful panel here, and I would like to call on our very first panelist, and that is Catherine Bertini. Catherine is well known to all of us here in the international agriculture world, and Catherine currently is the Distinguished Fellow for Global Food and Agriculture at the Chicago Council. She also serves as a Rockefeller Foundation Fellow. She is a member of the Compact 2025 Leadership Council here at IFPRI, and if I spent more time telling all of you about her wonderful accomplishments, the seminar would be over, and we wouldn't have a chance to hear from her, from others. Catherine, you are very much welcome your perspectives.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajul, Schengen, and at IFPRI colleagues. This report is just similar to any other of the work that IFPRI puts out. First class, thorough, thoughtful, provocative, and something that we can build on for the future. I know ever since I was at USDA and then in the UN and then afterwards that I've been counting on the incredible research that's been done by IFPRI to support our work, and I thank you very much for that and for this report. I chose for my few minutes to talk about Chapter 8 in the report, which is the Joachim von Braun paper about governance, and to make a few comments about where we might go in this space. Governance it sounds to many people very boring, oh yeah, governance, but nonetheless we are still bound in some cases or constrained in some cases by the systems that were set up for other reasons years ago, by the post-World War II organizations that were created with the thought process and the politics of the time, and with other organizations that were created in other spaces, like IFAD in the oil price crisis in the 90s. And what we have is a kind of conglomeration, not very many really or large organizations, but a conglomeration of organizations that were created for one issue or another that were never really thought through in terms of the overall network of how they work together. So all we do is end up saying coordinate, 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 when we have lots of different animals that can't necessarily work that way. And he's not saying that. I mean, he is saying we should coordinate, but he's also saying, Joachim in this paper, that we should look at these systems very critically and make some suggestions for the future, based in part around what Schengen has talked about in his opening remarks. But in his opening remarks, Schengen said he had a slide for weak global governance, and that's really what we have. I believe we have that because member states don't really take this too seriously. I mean, they don't really think, what are the strategies that could come out of the Food and Agriculture Organization that can help change the world? Who thinks about that? And who thinks about how WFP can move ahead besides WFP, and who tries to integrate the way that IFAD works with the way that some other organizations set priorities? The answer is no one. And in fact, there's different entities from each member state that are responsible for each of those at least three major entities, and they don't necessarily speak together. One time when I was at USDA, I was sent to a meeting of FAO with a message that we wanted to postpone the upcoming World Health Organization, FAO, conference on nutrition, because we didn't think there would have been enough preparatory time. And I was ruled out of order at the FAO meeting because, in fact, the U.S. government did not make the same request at the WHO meeting just before. Surprise, there was no coordination, and we are not untypical from others. So when, and I'm just picking on those three big organizations, but there are a lot more small ones. And of course, there's the whole CG system of which IFPRI is a part. And CG kind of goes through its own struggles for how it should be organized. I don't mean IFPRI itself, but the larger group. And again, where's the political will that sits on top of there and says, well, this research is really important for the future, and we need to make sure that this fits in the right places, and we need to talk about what works and what doesn't, and what agencies are really productive and what aren't. That conversation is not happening. And so it gets back to the point, my point of political will. Where is the political will to deal with these issues, and how can it be built if it's not there? But frankly, if we want to be cynical about it, we don't even have the political will globally to end wars that have been going on for 4 or 5 years. And we have a little bit of political will to end hunger in different places. But we don't have enough strength at high enough levels in enough member states to really take on some of these issues. So how can we get there? Well, I think we can build on what Joachim has said in this paper and take it a couple of steps further. One thing that member states, the governments, especially democracies, are motivated by is when they can see that there is a direct benefit to some other agenda that they have, and when it's not very expensive to do whatever it is to do. So it seems to me that if we could generate some research that was very specific towards certain key member states around, gee, if there's this investment in the governance of food and agriculture and nutrition, then potentially there'd be this kind of result, which would mean much more stability, which would mean better economies, which would mean more support for your interests, whether it's trade or stability or anything else. So that's what I'd like to see generated out of a report like this, if we could move some researchers in that direction. My final point is that since we talk about food, nutrition, and agriculture, we have to remember this is not just an agriculture conversation. And we've had this conversation here before between the nexus of agriculture and health and nutrition. I've often said nutrition is the bastard stepchild of agriculture and health. Nobody really wants to acknowledge that it's really part of their job, but nobody wants the other guy to really take over either. And I mean, between agriculture and health. So when we've got to also deal with that picture. It's not just what we're doing on agriculture, but if we're talking about nutrition, it is even a more global discussion than we think. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. As usual, very, very interesting. You posed a number of key issues. I pick up on 2 of them, and we'll come back on them during the discussion. This is where is the political will to deal with these issues, and how can we get there, and your call for generating research on the benefits, the results of investment, and showing and tracking through them to be able to show the ultimate. Thank you very much.